I'm James Rule. Welcome to the Lonely Leader podcast, where we help existing and aspiring leaders find clarity, build resilience, drive performance, and enhance fulfillment. High performance pledges. That's the focus of today's podcast, and I'm building the episode around one of my favourite poems, originally written by a gentleman called Christian Larson in the early 1900s. He believed that we all have latent, untapped powers that we can access if we adopt the right attitude. And so the Optimists Creed, for me, is a series of promises or pledges that we commit to as individuals. And the more I reflect on that and the more I work with people around the world in a diverse range of roles, the more these pledges come back to the fore continuously as a phenomenal roadmap that if we can all embrace this, we can find whole new levels of results and high performance, not just in our professional role, which is a critical aspiration for all of us, but also in our personal role, in those essential roles that we all fulfill, whether that's a husband or a wife, whether that's a parent, whether that's a son or a daughter, a brother or a sister. We've got multiple hats that we're all wearing and interchanging, often multiple times in every day. And fundamentally, for us to find fulfillment, we want to perform well in those roles. We want to be a good parent, a good partner. We want to excel and be a high performer in our professional role. So I thought it'd be useful to explore these pledges and just give you my personal take on them. I've heard a lot of people reflect how important they've been for them. Legendary coaches such as John Wooden, who was one of the most successful college basketball coaches in the United States. He used these pledges regularly. So you've probably heard some of them before, but as we always say on this podcast, common sense isn't always common practice. And just because we've heard them doesn't necessarily mean that we are living and breathing them and implementing them on a daily basis. Pledge number 1, to be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. Now, at The Lonely Leader, we talk continually about the fact that we need an empowered mindset. That's the foundation on which everything is built. We can have all the tactical knowledge, all the strategic ideas, but we will never build any momentum if we do not have the ability to create and sustain an empowered mindset. And this links also into resilience, because if we have high levels of resilience, we're able to keep moving forward through adversity. We protect and retain that empowered mindset, and we are in a much stronger position to find high performance. And it also makes me reflect on the quote that you often hear from Tony Robbins, who talks about the fact that we can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we perceive it. We can control the emotion we allow certain situations to generate. I know I'm talking common sense, but when we get into angry, anxious, stressed, fearful states, we are compromising our ability to find high performance. And you'll have heard me say on this podcast before, and it's certainly something I talk about with clients regularly, resilience is not innate. Too many of us succumb to this deluded notion that, well, I'm just simply not resilient. Like everything in life, when you work at it, it can be developed. And a major part of our work is helping people become more resilient so they have the strength that Christian Larson is alluding to in this first pledge. Pledge number 2, to talk health, happiness, and prosperity to every person that you meet. I like to talk about the notion of energy boosters and energy drainers, something I'm sure you've heard before, but the boosters are people that enhance our mood, our energy. We feel good when we're talking to them, when we're spending time with them, when we're in their company. And the energy drainers obviously do the reverse. And whilst I never advocate abandoning a friend in need or a colleague going through a difficult period of time, I think it's important to be consciously aware of who you surround yourself with and to be really mindful of retaining the boosters and perhaps distancing ourselves from the drainers because of the impact they have on what we've just been talking about, our mindset, our whole mood, and our energy. But I think it's also important to flip that round and put it back on yourself for a moment. Yes, we're looking at who are the people we spend time with, but what are you? If I was to go around and spend time with people in your social circle, family circle, within your professional circle, and I ask a simple question: is he, she a booster or a drainer? What would people say? So I think it's really important to be conscious of our words and how we impact other people. But equally, our words and thoughts are so critical in how we impact our own mindset and our own outlook. One of the ways I'll frame this is, what's your stock answer when somebody says, "How are you?" It's not a trick question. When we reflect, we've all generally got one. And if you're not sure, just have a think about how you've answered that question recently. Some options that I hear regularly: oh, I'm manic, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm unable to see the wood for the trees. These are all sort of stock answers that people become used to saying, which then impact your mindset and your outlook. And I researched and learned about the power of our words many, many years ago. And I created my own stock answer that my wife used to roll her eyes and say, "Oh, there we go. It's the same answer every time." But when she knew I was dealing with difficult situations or challenging environments during my tenure as a chief executive, and she'd say, how's your day going? And I'd always say, "I'm making progress." Now, that for me was really important because it didn't matter what level of adversity I was trying to overcome, what level of challenge I was trying to navigate through. I refused to use terminology like, "I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I can't cope, I can't see the wood for the trees, I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel." Whatever that terminology is, for me, being able to say, "I'm making progress," gave me a sense of control and empowerment because however slow that progress was, I was still moving forward. And that to me is critical. Something I talk about with clients is the essential human needs. We all have human needs. We all have different rankings on specific needs, but we all have a similar suite of needs. And one of the most frequently highlighted when I assess that with clients is the need to make growth and progress in our lives. Lots of the high performers I work with have that in their top 3 human needs. So I'm no different. That is in my top 3. And being able to use terminology like "I'm making progress" feeds into that. So I think it's really important to watch your thoughts, watch your words, because they do help to shape your reality. And using terminology like "I'm making progress," "I'm winning," impact our mindset and actually make it much easier to find the confidence and the desire to take action and to keep moving forward and to keep progressing until you've overcome that challenge or moved through that period of adversity. To make all your friends feel that there is something worthwhile in them. Now, I'm actually going to expand that pledge to include your partner, your family, your colleagues. We should never underestimate the power we have with our words, actions, gestures to positively impact somebody else. Simple smiles, eye contact, thank you, whether it's to a stranger or people that you're closely connected to, has the ability to brighten somebody's day. Holding a door open for somebody as you exit a supermarket or an office building. These small, seemingly insignificant gestures can have a hugely positive impact on other people. And the fact is, we have never been more connected in the history of mankind. We have social media platforms, we have our mobile phones, we have text messaging, WhatsApp, email. It is so easy to connect with people. And I urge you to utilize that connectivity. When somebody pops into your head and you have an emotion of gratitude or love or respect, moving through that gambit of partner, colleague, mentor, friend, just take a moment to capture it. It takes seconds to dictate a quick voice note on a LinkedIn message or a WhatsApp message, to send a quick text or an email, and let people know how you feel. It's a strange fact of life that people often don't truly express how special someone was to them until they pass away. And you hear these tragic scenarios where people say, I wish I'd told them just how much they mean to me, or how much I love them, or how grateful I am for that individual for supporting me in the early stages of my career, for being a great mentor. So if those sort of thoughts pop in your head, take a moment to reach out and say, thank you for everything you've done for me in my career. Express those feelings of love and gratitude, because you'll feel great for doing it. I always say when you do a good deed or a kind gesture, you get just as much as the recipient, but that recipient, you could hugely impact their day. So I love that pledge. It's one of the ones that really resonates with me. And I urge you, as you're listening to me on this now, to think, who should I be expressing gratitude, love, respect for? And how easy would it be? Now, I'm just going to put the bow on the top of this particular point. I am a big advocate, and for those of you that listen to the podcast regularly will have heard me say this, on the handwritten note. Nobody gets letters anymore. It's all digital. And if you actually take the time to write a thank you note, or a gratitude note, or a love note, or whatever it might be, to whatever person we're talking about in your life, the impact is enhanced tenfold of actually being able to see that someone has taken the time to send me a handwritten note with their feelings in will create a hugely positive impact for you and for them. Pledge number 4, to look at the sunny side of everything and make your optimism come true. It reminds me of a phrase I heard many years ago that I've always loved: relentless optimism. It's hard to retain a sense of optimism, particularly when you're going through challenge and when you're moving through adversity. But if you have that desire and that mindset, I'm going to be relentlessly optimistic. It's a fabulously empowering phrase to utilize. I draw a lot of strength from that. And it ties back into the Tony Robbins situation that we mentioned in some of the earlier pledges, that none of us can control what happens to us. It's an impossibility to be able to set out a defined channel for the rest of our lives, but we do have the ability to control how we react to things. We can slide into pessimism, or we can fight to stay relentlessly optimistic and try to look at the sunny side. Now, that is easy when it rolls off the tongue as I'm expressing it, but I appreciate it's much harder in practice. And one of the teaching philosophies I have is the simple premise that there is always opportunity in adversity. Now, it might not feel it at the time, but there is always something at the very basic level that we can learn. And if we remind ourselves and we look back over periods of our lives when we've endured adversity, we can invariably always find a learning, a lesson, something that we didn't know going into that period that we knew coming out. And reminding ourselves of that is a great coping mechanism when we find ourselves in something new, uncomfortable, another form of adversity, to say, every time this has happened to me in my life, I learned something. I come out stronger and wiser as a consequence. And that old adage of when a door closes, another one often opens. And I really believe that. And if it needs reinforcing, just look back at your life. There may be a job that you wanted, a promotion you went for, you didn't get it at the time, hugely frustrating, but then another door opened and you found yourself in a much more fulfilling role. Another common illustration of this is a relationship. A relationship may end, it's frustrating, you're trying to go back to that door, the door's locked, your previous partner's moving on, but then another door opens and you meet somebody that you're far happier and more fulfilled with. So I think it helps to be able to retain that optimism and see the sunny side of everything that Christian Larson alluded to, by reminding yourself that there is always opportunity in adversity and challenging yourself to try and stay relentlessly optimistic as you move through that period. Pledge number 5, to think only of the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best. Now, this is a little bit repetitive with pledge number 4, but what I've always taken from this is the notion of standards, that we've got to expect the best from ourselves, and we are entitled to expect the best from others, but it starts with us, and to work for the best and to ensure that we are, in essence, a good role model. It's a challenge I love to give to myself. It's a challenge I love to present to clients is, are you a good role model? Are you a good role model in all facets of your life? Are you setting high standards in terms of your words and your actions at work? Do people look to you as one of the people who sets a standard, who enhances the culture of the organization? Equally, are you setting a great standard at home as a parent to your children, to your partner, to your extended family? Are you a good role model in your friendship group? None of us are perfect. We all are works in progress. But I like that notion of a challenge of bringing our best version of ourselves and this need to expect the best, work towards being the best. And it reminds me of the Henry Ford quote, because first and foremost, we've got to believe that we can achieve these high standards. We've got to expect, as Christian Larson was saying, that we can achieve it. Because if we don't believe it, we won't achieve it. And the famous Henry Ford quote, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. It sounds like a bit of a tongue twister, but the premise that Henry Ford is talking to there relates perfectly with this point. If you don't believe you can achieve those high standards, if you don't expect to get there, then it's highly unlikely you're going to get there. And therefore, there's a ripple effect. If you can't reach those high standards, it's not really right to be expecting that of other people. It starts with you. Believe you can do it, expect to do it, work towards it, and achieve it. Pledge number 6, to be just as enthusiastic about the success of others as you are about your own. Human nature states that this is a challenging one for all of us. However moral we are, however noble we believe we are, we will all succumb at some point in some parts of our life to comparison. And it is the epitome of the thief of joy, something we've talked about in previous episodes, that once you start comparing your personal and professional life to other people, you will always find people that you perceive are doing things differently or better than you. And it runs the risk of creating envy and that emotion of jealousy that can never serve you, just puts you in a disempowered state and compromises your ability to perform. I think this also ties into the point we talked about earlier when we're making our friends, family, colleagues feel that there is something special and valuable about them. If we do not find the ability and the empathy to truly celebrate the successes of others, then we aren't really going to be able to achieve that previous pledge of making people feel there is something valuable and special inside them. So I think it's hugely important to be able to have that ability to congratulate people, to celebrate their successes. And it is the epitome of being a booster, isn't it? As we talked about earlier, if you don't ever congratulate and celebrate people's successes, then you're not really one of those energy boosters. And if you become aware of people that never celebrate your success, then it's something we've talked about in other episodes. You need to start thinking about distancing yourself. There's a famous Leonardo DiCaprio quote who said, "Be wary of those that do not celebrate and clap for you in your moments of success." Now, that no doubt relates to picking up awards and Oscars and various things at award ceremonies. And I know we're not all in that scenario, but the principle remains the same. Aspire to always celebrate the success of others and be mindful of those that don't ever seem to have it within them to celebrate your success. They undoubtedly fall into the energy draining camp, and they are people where possible you need to be creating a little bit of distance or potentially removing them altogether from your social circles. Pledge number 7, to forget the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future. I'm quoting Tony Robbins a lot in this episode, but there's a lot of his sayings and concepts seem particularly relevant to these topics. And one of the phrases he uses is that where focus goes, energy flows. If we're obsessing about something, good or bad, that tends to exacerbate the situation. And he has a question: are we thinking about the past or the present moment we're in and the compelling future we wish to create? And unfortunately, a lot of us get locked in the past, looking backwards, regretting what we did do or what we didn't do, opportunities we did take or perhaps missed, things we said and indeed things we wish we'd said. And it's so toxic to our mindset and our overall level of performance because none of us have time machines, none of us can go back in time. And it pulls us away from the precious moment that we're in, the present, and the need to be assessing what can I control, what actions can I take now that are going to create the compelling future, both professionally and personally, that I aspire to. And again, it sounds a little bit cheesy, but you'll have heard the analogy. The rear view mirror in the car is far smaller than the windscreen for one reason. We're meant to be looking forward and only occasionally looking back in our rear view mirror. So I encourage you to utilize those metaphors, and we've all got things in our past that challenge us, that causes anxiety or regret, but we can't go back. None of us can go back. All we can do is bring the best version of ourselves to the present moment to do the best we can for ourselves, for those around us, for those people that rely on us, our colleagues, our staff, our partner, our children, our extended family, our friends, to do the best we can for them. And the more energy we put into the present moment and the actions we can take, the quicker we are going to make a positive impact on them. Conversely, with the less time we're thinking about our actions and the more time we're thinking about looking backwards, it reduces the impact on everybody that we're able to have. Pledge number 8. To give so much time to the improvement of yourself that you have no time to criticize others. What a wonderful place society would be if we could all embrace this. We're all prone to criticizing others. Of course we are. It might be an aggressive driver on the motorway, on the highway, that cuts you up on the way to work. It might be something that somebody's done which is unkind and unprofessional at work. There are triggers each and every day that are encouraging us to criticize. But we all know when we get drawn into that space, it doesn't do us any good. The chemicals, the negativity in our body when we're in a critical state just disempower our mindset and compromise our ability to create and sustain high performance. So being able to pull away from that, and I love this anchor that Christian Larson's given us, to be too busy improving ourselves. And I like to remind myself, I also do the same with clients, of, am I the finished article? Am I perfect? And of course, none of us are. And before we get drawn into that criticism, you say, well, actually, what can I work on? What's within my control? What should I be doing to improve my physical health, my mental health, my performance at work, my presence as a parent? There are always a multitude of things. So before we get sucked into criticizing others, the old adage of those who live in a glass house shouldn't throw stones. There's lots of different metaphors to reinforce the same point, and it's as true today as it was over 100 years ago when Christian Larson was writing these pledges. Let's focus on improving ourselves and reducing the level of criticism we put out into society. Pledge number 9. I promise to be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit trouble to press on me. It's a lengthy pledge to finish with, but it wraps around everything we've talked about. The emotions of worry and anger and fear are futile. They compromise our ability to perform, they disempower our mindset. And these pledges that we've talked about today are the perfect antidotes to that. They keep bringing us back to the notion of what can I control? And all of these pledges are in our control. How we make other people feel special, how we remain relentlessly optimistic and look at things and find the sunny side of things. All of these steps are within your control. And I sincerely hope that as you embrace them and as you implement them and as you use these as sort of guardrails, if you will, a guiding star, just reminders, you will find that you are better placed to reduce fear, reduce anger, reduce worry, and find it easier to find new levels of performance. And as I always stress, not just to get there, but to sustain those high levels of performance in every facet of your life. I wish you the very best of luck. And as ever, please do continue to share your feedback about how these episodes help and support your growth and development, and any ideas you'd like me to consider for the production of future episodes. Thanks for listening to the Lonely Leader podcast. I'd be very grateful if you could share and follow if the content resonates. And if you're looking for additional free resource to support your continued growth and development, then please do check out our social media and website details in the show notes. Remember, quality leadership on the outside must always start within.